My name is Alan Collier. I'm a senior in college, and I'll be talking with my friend Kai Olson.
That's me. My name is Sergeant Olson. I am a 13th Fox with the 173rd Infantry Brigade. I just got stationed up here in Italy, and I'm here to do this interview with my best friend, Alan.
So I went to Benjamin Bossi High School, and I've been there freshman through senior year. And you moved there, I think it was around junior year. Then senior year is when you really started start hanging out and stuff like that, right?
After junior year, you kind of figured out who your friends were, and people were pretty comfortable. By senior year, that's when we started to hang out more and realize that we were kind of pretty similar and we had similar interests. So it kind of just worked out well. We were both busy working, but when we weren't, we would kind of hang out once or twice a week, maybe. And we would usually play soccer or just be lazy and just sit and play video games.
And you didn't start basic training until early 2017. So what were you doing pretty much 2016, I guess?
Yeah, so once you abandoned me in 2016, it wasn't a super eventful year. Other than, we would maybe play video games once a week again, just because you were gone and then I was getting ready to go. So whenever we could, we would talk or hang out or something like that. So January, I shipped off to Fort Jackson, South Carolina to do basic training, which was 2.5 months or so. And, it wasn't the hardest thing I've ever done. It was definitely a culture shock. It was very interesting to kind of go through it. Mm-hmm. It kind of felt like high school again, in a sense, where everyone has their own cliques and you just try to get through the day. Once every 3 or 4 weeks, you'd get a 10-15 minutes with your phone and you could try to talk to somebody. But other than that, pretty much every few days they would do mail call. And mail call is you want to get a letter, because if you don't get a letter, you look really depressed, and it's just a mood killer if you don't get one. But if you get a letter, it's awesome.
2017 New Year's, we were both home for winter break, and I think that was around the last time we hung out, right? In person, at least.
Yeah. So because I was getting ready for basic, I had to get rid of my apartment, and I was basically homeless for a few days. So I was like, "Hey, Alan, can I stay with you for a day or so?" And you hooked me up while you were partying and enjoying your time. Mm-hmm. I finally finished all my training. And then they sent me to Fort Bragg, which is in North Carolina. So I finally got done with all the training, was integrated into the actual Army. My family, when they would see me after these training iterations, they said I looked completely different. My demeanor was completely different. So, over time, you just slowly change. But yeah, I was finally at Fort Bragg, and it was good to just be living like a human again. Yeah, so in the Army, everyone has a job or an MOS. Mm-hmm. And you go to a school for that after you complete basic training. So mine, 13th Fox, Forward Observer, I deal with artillery, which is all in Fort Sill. So I went to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, it's an 8-week training.
So once you got to Fort Bragg after your AIT, how was your daily life there? And you make any new friends, or you getting more comfortable at least?
I didn't cause issues with people, and I try to just stay in my lane, basically. It's pretty intimidating when you get there, because you have people who've been in this job for 20 years just walking by all the time. You're being judged by a lot of really intelligent and really capable people. So it is intimidating for a while, and it probably took me a year before I felt comfortable just walking around the base.
Yeah, I guess, for college, we're all, all the students are around the same age, I guess, and they're at that age range, maybe 4 years younger or older, stuff like that. So, I feel it was pretty easy to make friends, especially when you're in the same major. And you're you have roommates and you're all on the same floor. You get sort of used to talking to people around your age about college life and how they're experiencing it and stuff like that. So what did your daily routine at Fort Bragg consist of?
A typical week, let's say perfect standards. One of those days is you're going to go to the motor pool, inspect all the vehicles, take care of everything that needs maintenance, basically. And then probably 2 of those days are going to be more admin / classroom related. So you'll either be teaching classes to the lower ranks, or you'll be keeping up on paperwork, because the paperwork just doesn't stop in the Army. And then the other 2 days are probably a bit more physical or outside. So maybe the things you learned in the classroom, you're taking outside to actually put them into practice and just running through drills, essentially. Any job skills that we need to get work on. So some days we would get radios out and practice working on radios, just so we're comfortable with our equipment. That's a perfect week.
So since you've joined the military, have you been overseas at all?
Eventually, near the end of 2018, we finally got word that we're going to be going to Afghanistan. So I did end up serving a tour over there.
So around when you were leaving for Afghanistan, we didn't really talk as much, I guess, once you got there. But I mean, even when we didn't talk much, we still remained like pretty close friends. I mean, we don't have to like talk every month, every week or something like that. Just to, like stay, I guess, close, you could say.
We were really good about just like having long gaps of like not talking. Like we might have even gone like a couple months without talking sometimes, just because I had a lot of crazy shit going on in my life, and then you were dealing with college and trying to figure stuff like going on there. So even though we had like long gaps, I would just be like, oh yeah, let's see what Alan's up to, and just message you some weird shit that probably freaked you out. But I had to make sure you were still, you're still there.
So when you got to Afghanistan, what was like, I guess, what did your job entail there? Or what did you do with your time there?
Myself, I was in charge of protecting basically this really important airfield in Kandahar. Basically, one day you'd go out and drive to a certain area to where they think the enemy might be, and most likely nothing would happen. And then you would come back and you'd be gone for like 12 hours. And then the next day you would do maintenance, or you'd be on like the emergency response force. So it was a more consistent, more routine than what I knew some other guys had.
In your time in Afghanistan, did you like sort of maybe meet with any of the local population? Did you talk with them, or?
We would roll out to like one of these mud hut villages, get out and kind of just do like a screening patrol, just like put our presence out there. And we had direct contact with a lot of different people from those villages. So the females were always gone. So what we dealt with was like the village elders typically, and then the young boys who were like 10 years old or less. Yeah. We were trying to build relations with the elders, and I mean, you learned a lot about like what they thought was respectable. So
yeah, did you maybe meet any kids that like maybe didn't appreciate your presence, or like they trying to talk to you at all, or?
So yeah, I mean, they're the best swindlers I've ever met, because like the first thing they're going to try to do is get something from you. These people, like, they sometimes had nothing, so we did try to like give them things when we could, but sometimes the mission didn't dictate that, and we had to focus on what we were doing. So
were there any struggles you faced with your deployment there at times?
We had people from other companies who they would leave a compound with friendly Afghanistan soldiers. And as they were leaving, they were shot in the back by friendly soldiers who were working for the Taliban. So it was like, you were still kind of on edge and you were stressed out. So that was in everybody's mind. But the real fight there was IEDs. Like, they did not want to engage with our 4 gun trucks for obvious reasons. So on 2 different occasions, my convoys hit IEDs. It was always the lead vehicle. I was riding in the second one every time, because that's where the platoon leader was at, and I was kind of like his right-hand man. So IEDs was a big issue for us. Luckily, no one was killed in the IEDs that we hit. Some other platoons weren't as lucky, and they lost a few guys in IEDs. So that was like the biggest threat while we were out there. So to cope with that, this stray cat actually like hung out in our bay area. And that was like, for me, that was like therapy, basically, hanging out with him. Unfortunately, near the end of deployment, he actually ended up having to be put down because of some possible rabies issues. And like, our medic bought like a $20 Amazon gun, tattoo gun. I don't know, deployment's crazy. So like, to kind of like quell my like anger and just everything going on, I ended up getting a tattoo of him on my back. Turned out terrible, but it's my favorite tattoo because it's both my first one and it means a lot to me. So
you were in Afghanistan for like the second half of 2019 up until 2020, I guess, around March 2020, I think it was. So around that time is when, I guess, COVID-19 started to pick up and gain more traction.
So it was weird because like we were just hanging out before a mission, and someone started talking about how some like disease was coming up through Afghanistan in like 2019. One of our interpreters, actually, he said his friends were getting sick with this new disease. When we were learning about it, like the army was still trying to figure out what to do, basically, because you have this force that's, you know, several million people big, and they didn't know what to do quite with protocols and stuff like that. So
so we got like an email saying like, hey, everyone can stay an extra week home because of COVID, like seeing how serious it would get and stuff like that. So I mean,
you in a couple weeks, but
so I mean, we all enjoyed it. We got an extra week of vacation pretty much. But after those 2 weeks were up, we were pretty much told like, hey, anyone can like sort of take their stuff if they lived on campus, bring it back home. Switch from like in-person to online classes is like a big change.
I mean, it was the same for us. Like we came back from deployment, March 2020, and typically there's a big procession and like everyone's family's there, and it's like a big ceremony. Nobody was allowed there, dead silent.
After you got back from Afghanistan, were there like any changes you may have noticed, or like other than COVID-19?
Yeah, so coming back from Afghanistan, I was promoted January of that year. So I went from being junior enlisted to a non-commissioned officer. So my whole job and my role in the Army has completely changed. I noticed that I had this I didn't know what it was, but looking back, it was basically PTSD. I had PTSD for like maybe 2-3 weeks, maybe a month. It was in that area to where basically I couldn't ride in a car, passenger side, without just being extremely stressed out. It was like, even though my vehicle itself didn't hit an IED, I think just my convoys getting hit, just being like high strung for 9 months, it just wore on me mentally. And I think I still have like slivers of like, I get stressed more than I did in a passenger seat.
So I guess around that like time period, we talk about like video games, we talk about like relationships, stuff like that, really. Just messing around, I guess.
I try my best basically just to annoy you at least like once a week. And if I accomplish that, it's like the relationship's cool.
Once you got promoted to sergeant, did you get any like new responsibilities at your time in the U.S. or?
Now I was in charge of like actual people and was expected to kind of lead and form the next generation in a sense. So I had like 2 guys I was in charge of, but one more specifically because we work in like teams of 2.
Yeah. So with Afghanistan behind you, were you like looking forward to anything, or?
I was kind of just being nonchalant about it, and little did I know, my sergeant comes in and says, "Hey, you know you got orders for Italy, right?" So I was like, "No, I do not know that at all." Yeah. I don't know how I got to Italy. If I'm being honest, I just winged it the entire time. The paperwork, the movers, everything. I'm surprised I'm here. There's a lot you got to do. It was very different and nice at the same time, seeing something that was like, I don't know, just a different culture. Once I actually got here, it was pretty nice. Like, I'm still in like the tourist mode to where everywhere I go, I just have my phone doing this, and I look really annoying probably. Every weekend was going somewhere different around Italy, trying new foods, trying new places. So that was honestly like my first couple months here. That's what I was doing.
Well, do you like get any like weird comments or looks maybe about you guys? Or?
Yeah, someone just rolls down their window and says, "Go home," and just rolls it up and drives away. So it's like, that's the kind of reaction we get most of the time. Like, I've had people like stop and like point at me like, "There goes the American." But for the most part, like the workers especially, everyone is very friendly, and we have a lot of money, so they like us a lot.
So now that you're in Italy, do you have like a weekly routine that you follow, or what do you do there now?
A lot of my day-to-day is basically just planning on like, how can I improve their basic soldier skills?
Yeah.
You know, we do the typical things of, when we can, we do marksmanship training, we do our job training, we do radio training, things like that are kind of standard, but they emphasize different things here. So we just finished the expert soldier training recently, to where they compete for expert soldier badges. So that's something that we didn't do back at Fort Bragg. But the schedule's calming down a bit more to where it's like I have time to go socialize. So I've started making some like Italian friends, because it's just murder trying to get through Italy if you only speak English. So you have a lot more, I guess, options when you can travel versus, do you want to go to North Carolina or South Carolina? Or, like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, my traveling consists of Carbondale, Evansville, and then Florida occasionally, like maybe once every 3 months, something like that. So
terrible options.
Yeah, not too diverse compared to you.
Yeah, I mean, going back to the States now is expensive too, which is why when I go back for training, hopefully we can link up again and hang out, because like, it's really gorgeous here, but to go back to the States, I think it's like $3,000 round ticket is what someone's paying.
Oh, yeah.
So it's going to be expensive to kind of like travel back home more.
So in the next couple of months, I'll start looking for a job after college. Is there anything you're looking forward to after, or in your military career, or what you're gonna do after that?
Kind of just live. This is a bit like, I have much pride when I do this job, but after this, I kind of want to do what I think like speaks to my heart. So I'll probably do something with animals, or something with like forest conservation, something with nature and animals, to where it's not about other people.
Yeah, I think college has definitely helped me mature. And while they're pretty different, like military and college, I think it also helped you mature as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, they both do the same thing of I think they force you out of your comfort zone. So I'm sure
Yeah.
that like whether or not you wanted to, you had to interact with people, you had to put yourself in front of a class. I have to do that a lot with military. So very similar experiences to where we've both grown, but we kind of still held on to like the same things that kind of kept us what drew us to each other, I think, in the first place and why we got along so well. So it's kind of forced on us, whether you want it or not, to kind of just mature and kind of just evolve with our opinions and our thoughts and everything like that. But we still kind of go back to like what we did in high school, where we just talk shit, play some video games.
Yeah.
Everything's smooth sailing.
Well, Kai, it was good talking to you again. I know there's a pretty big time difference between us. I think it's like around midnight there for you. I hope anyone's watching this has gained a new perspective, hopefully, on like maybe the college and military life, now they're the same or different. Do you have any closing thoughts on that?
I don't really talk about my job too much. So when I come down there, like January, hopefully we can make some time and like actually face-to-face talk and hang out, because it's been like 5 years. So
it's been
we can
a while.
actually, break that up a bit, give another 5 years, and then see each other again.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is good just to kind of like catch up. But yeah, it's about midnight now, so I'll probably be going to bed in another hour or two because I have a terrible sleep schedule.
Yeah, me too. Same here. But yeah, look forward to seeing you again in January, hopefully.
Sounds good. All right, man. I'll see you then.